In this example, we'll be using the index match dynamic to answer how much our item costs on the Old Town Coffee menu. I'm going to start in cell K7, and we're going to use index match. Now, index allows us to look at a table like this one here and pull back information at a specific row and or column. In cell K7, I'll show you how we can do this with index before we put in the match, just to drive home how index works. So I'm going to type in index right here. The first thing index is looking for is an array. It calls it an array, but you can think of it as a data set. You can think of it as a table. It doesn't really matter what you call it. But you'll see that this has a lot in common with how our previous example looked with VLOOKUP. So in this case, I'm going to start with cell B3, and I'm going to highlight this entire table to cell E9. Again, as I did in the previous example, even though I'm not dragging this anywhere, I just want to remember that this table is not going to go anywhere. It should not be relative reference. So I'm going to hit F4 right here to lock it in. I'm going to hit comma. Now, index is looking for a row number. And in addition, I can supply a column number. So if I know that my latte is, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 items down, I can put a 4 right here. So that's the row number I'm going to tell index to look at. And then I'll hit comma. And now I know my medium, as you recall before, is the third column in. So that's 1. You can follow my mouse. 2, 3. So I'll type in a 3 here. And I'll close that parenthesis. And I'll hit enter. And you can see it pulled back 375. That is the value that we wanted it to pull back. Now, I know what you're thinking. What happens if I don't want a medium latte? Because, you know, I've already had a lot of caffeine today. I need to cut back. The doctor says my blood pressure is too high. I think I want to go decaf. And heck, you know, even though it's a decaf coffee, why not splurge and go all out? I mean, if we're going to drink decaf, let's just drink a large decaf. So I've switched this to how much for a large decaf. Well, now I have a huge problem because in cell K7, I have these constants, as we would call them. So this 4 and a 3 are constants because they don't change with respect to my data changing. So I need to fix that. What I need to do is use match to figure out where to locate decaf on this list and large on this list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this original index formula. And in this case, I'm going to start from scratch. So it's always a good idea to start from scratch to reinforce what we need to do. Let's start with index. We're going to select the table that we're interested in. We're going to lock that in, comma. And now we need to figure out the row number of what we're trying to find. In this case, I'm going to type in match. So match is like VLOOKUP. The first thing it wants to know is the lookup value. In this case, the first thing I want to find is that decaf. So I'll click right here. This is my search value. I'm going to look for it within this array right here. And you'll notice that I kept this extra space up here. Now, why did I do that? So if I only selected here, it would find decaf and it's going to return a 2 because that's going to be the second item on the list. But when it goes and uses that information within this table, on this index table, it's going to go to regular coffee because that's the second item down. So we need to make sure we're comparing like kinds. So here I'm going to select this whole thing. And I'm going to hit F4 because we're not going to drag it anywhere. And then I'll hit comma, and then I'll type in false or 0. So I can put a false in here. I like putting false. You can see that false is not on the list, so maybe it's a good idea to use 0. And I'll leave that up to you. Now, I just want to show you, before I add in the second match, that this does indeed work. So we've matched that item in there. The third column that index is going to look for, I'll just type in a 3. I'll close this parenthesis. You can see now that it is picking up. Oh, see, I made a mistake. Let's keep that mistake in there. You can see I made a mistake here. I put in a 3. In fact, we wanted large, which is actually going to be a 4 here. So I'll hit enter. You see it pulls out 3.99. So just to make sure that I am correct, that this match is returning the number that I want, what I can do here is I can actually check it based off of a tip I used from a previous module. So in this case, it's the instant calculation, and I can highlight what I want to be calculated, the thing I'm interested in, and I can press F9 as I'm doing here, and you can see it returned a 3. So that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to hit escape not to keep that. And then finally what I can do here, where this 4 is, I can make this fully dynamic so that no matter what I change, it will always look up the right information. So in this case, what's my match criteria? What's that lookup value? I'm going to select this cell K5. And in this case, I'm going to select cells B3 through E3. That's going to be my lookup array, my lookup table. I'll hit F4 to lock it in. I'll hit comma again. In this case, I'm just going to put a 0 to say that I always want it to be an exact match. And then what I did is I hit the right arrow key over here, so it's telling me I'm missing a parenthesis, and that's fine. I'm just going to hit yes and accept this correction, and you can see that it actually works as it's supposed to right now. So if I go to cell K4 and I say, I kind of want macchiato now. I've changed my mind, and I want to make it a small. Now you can see that this updates immediately.